Hey there, bit of a different one this time. So, lately I've been seeing a couple of videos here and there talking about the state of Fire Emblem Heroes, and while I agree with a bit of the criticism of the game, I also disagree with some of it. Most of these criticisms, from what I understand, come from a place of burnout, and people trying to find justifications for why they are effectively burnt out from the game. But if you think about it, Faye is on its way to being 5 years old. It's perfectly normal to feel some sort of burnout after doing the same stuff for so long. Regardless, because this game is so near and dear to me, and having never missed a day since launch, yes, that sounds crazy, but it's true, I feel like I can share my own thoughts about it. To this day, Faye is still the perfect bite-sized Fire Emblem experience. No game has even come close to what Fire Emblem Heroes is. A perfect game to play on the go that can be enjoyed very casually, but also has insane depth if you want to dive deep into the theory crafting aspect of the game. The difference between this game and something like Langrisser Mobile or even War of the Divisions is that, for one, it doesn't feel like a job to play, but also the maps are perfectly designed for short sessions, fully fitting on the screen, while surprisingly maintaining fidelity with the actual maps from the console titles, which is obviously a nice touch. Also, because there's no critical or mischance, which are present in the mainline games obviously, it's possible to calculate every outcome if you so desire, thus adding to the depth mentioned earlier. The game has barely any grind in terms of leveling and building up units, something that should be appreciated more. In a lot of mobile games, it's not unusual taking weeks, sometimes even months of grinding, to have a character ready to be used. And it is also pretty hands off for the most part, besides the PvP modes, and even those can be played more casually if you so desire, to get good enough rewards. What I mean by this is that Fae is not a game that requires your complete attention, unlike, let's say, Genshin Impact that plays more like an MMO, or Dragon Ball Legends with its real-time PvP, and it's something I personally truly appreciate. Even then, it plays and feels exactly like a main series title, and Tales of Luminaria is a recent example. It feels like they just slapped the Tales name in there just to try and make it more successful. Well, it didn't work. Despite everything, you can tell there has been genuine effort to make the experience more accessible overall. The game is pretty free to play friendly, and it's possible to stay at the top of competitive modes with good planning and knowledge, as demonstrated by several members of the community, myself included. This is something that is 100% impossible in many MOBA games, yet feasible in this one, something I feel deserves a bit more credit. And speaking of competitive modes, let's start by talking about the five main competitive modes people care about: Arena, Arena Assault, Allegiance Battles, Resonant Battles, and Ether Raids. Some people may consider other events such as Pawns of Loki or Mjolnir's Strike as competitive, but I feel like the ones people give the most importance to are the five mentioned previously, even though Resonant Battles is a bit of a joke. I think it's safe to say these competitive modes, and to a lesser degree, Tempest Trials and Forging Bonds, are the bread and butter of Fire Emblem Heroes, especially Aether Rays, being at the forefront of content creation, easily being the best thing to come out since launch, an opinion that's shared between many players. I will leave talking about AR for last since it's the topic I have the most to say about, so let's start with Arena and Arena Assault, that have been with us since year 1. It's honestly pretty hard to defend Arena, in part due to how the scoring is handled, so I'm not gonna try. Arena is not a good mode, it's just not, but that doesn't mean it was always bad. What has contributed to making Arena a more miserable experience is the constant BST creep coupled with the release of really unfun units to deal with, from dancers that score the same as armored units, to ranged calves that can cover two-thirds of the map on turn 1, and therefore delete your units pretty easily. It doesn't help that no one likes fishing for a good score. IS has tried to keep Arena fresh and exciting with the release of new map rotations, dual skills, which allows players to use their year 1 units and have them suffer against current meta units. Yeah, have fun with that. And various other changes. Some have been nice quality of life changes, such as only needing to do 5 matches instead of 7, or the more recent tactical retreat. Others were met with skepticism or even dislike, such as the bonus unit needing to get every kill, which turned Arena into a cheerleading meta where you wanted to support your bonus unit, a lot of the time your weakest unit, so that it could deal with all 4 enemies, something that obviously wasn't always possible. After a year, they did change it so that you only needed to get 1 kill with the bonus unit, but yeah, that was pretty painful. All in all, Arena is pretty much beyond saving now. You can probably still find some enjoyment if you happen to have a highly merged bonus unit, I guess. But one thing's for sure, it will always be fondly remembered as the mode where people used to run Fury 3 on their characters to score higher, way back when skill inheritance first came out. Yeah, who remembers that? Jeez. Now, Arena Assault is a bit different. You still have to deal with the same threats as Arena, since you're basically just fighting Arena teams. However, this time you can use items, ooh, and you can counterpick after seeing the enemy team after the first match. Arena Assault is pretty much the mode where you pretend that the one pity breaker you got last week is useful because you can use it for it, and then proceed to use the same strong units you've been using every week because they're the only ones that can handle the crazy new units IS releases. Jokes aside though, I like Arena Assault. I've always liked it. It's a mode where I can use a diverse roster of characters and that's genuinely fun to me. Unlike Arena, every change they've done to this mode has been for the best, the biggest one being allowing pausing in the middle of the streak. The rewards, however, aren't exactly amazing, so I don't blame people for not caring for it, or at least doing the bare minimum. Next, we have Allegiance Battles, the one mode where pair-ups are used. It's the mode that really shows how overtuned some games are in comparison to others. I mean, just compare a Three Houses week to a Sacred Stones week. Overall, the mode is fine. It has a unique playstyle of matching the opposite colors to get kills, even though some maps should have been deleted a long time ago, especially that one. You know which one I'm talking about. Ooh. It used to be every week, but now it's something you worry about every 2 weeks. It's another mode that uses arena scoring, so if you don't like that, you probably won't like it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's mostly harmless and can even be fun sometimes. Or frustrating, depending on the map. Finally, we have the newest Coliseum mode in the block, Resonant Battles. I say newest, but it came out in June of 2020. It's actually kinda old at this point. It's one of the ways to get the most desired trait fruits, and the one mode that uses harmonized heroes. It seemed interesting at first, using bigger maps just like Grand Conquest, and admittedly, was pretty fun for the first couple of weeks, until you got to the upper tiers where enemy HP and stats were so bloated, it just stopped being fun. But thankfully, IS fixed this and also removed the try limit, which made the whole thing very stressful overall. Unfortunately, the mode is pretty much more the same every week at this point, especially for people without harmonized heroes. I personally got my first one 3 weeks ago with harmonized Catria, and I always jump between tier 19 and 20, which is good enough for me. Sitting outside the Coliseum menu, even having a menu just for itself, we have what many consider the main PvP mode of Fire Emblem Heroes, Ether Raids. Probably the most controversial mode, as I feel like players either absolutely love it or absolutely hate it. It's a mode where, simply put, you can craft your own defense and offense teams and fight other people's defense teams. This sandboxy feeling is what makes AR so great. I love seeing how creative people can get with their teams. The first year of Ether Raids is what I consider the golden age of FEH. Certainly until the release of Air, it was the most skillful game mode in the history of the game, a time where you could use whatever units you wanted, where merges pretty much did not matter. The release of Mythics restricted team building a little bit, and also made it more pay to win, but despite all this, AR continued to be, and still is, the best and most fun mode in Fire Emblem Heroes. Crafting or just theory crafting defense teams is just super fun, and seeing your creation perform well and win against good players is always a great feeling. It is the only game mode that offers a replay system of your defense matches, and you'll usually have around 10 to 11 replays every week to get data on how your defense team performed. On the offense side of the mode, it's also extremely satisfying to win against a powerful defense team, filled with units you will sadly meet a couple of times a week because of the meta. Although Arena went through some meta changes too, from using 4 armor units to using high BSD units plus a legendary in season, to using duo units plus a legendary in season, it's safe to say Ether Race is the game mode that has underwent the most meta shifts in the game, keeping it exciting and fresh for some people, but frustrating for many others. An ever evolving defense meta accompanied by an evolving offense meta offer a dynamic that isn't present anywhere else in the game. The downside to the existence of a prevalent meta at any given time unfortunately means you'll be facing the same units over and over again, which can get quite tedious. From the old days of Ophelia, Legendary Azura, Eliwood, and Corner Duma, to now facing Legendary Sigurd, Duo Sigurd, Harmonized Katria, and Coroner Fallen Edelgard. The difference here being these new units are way more obnoxious to deal with, especially when paired with mythics such as Not. The current meta threads definitely required way more adaptation than ever before, which is honestly what the mode has always been about, but it further keeps casual players away from it. Thankfully, IS has introduced, just like in the Coliseum modes, some nice quality of life improvements, such as the addition of auto dispatch for the casual crowd, escape ladders to make losses less punishing, the creation of the Vault of Heaven, and I guess safety fence could be considered one too. Being someone that has gotten every gold share so far in Ether Raids, and it being my favorite game mode, I can still find enjoyment from it. It's still a really fun and engaging mode. Obviously, there will be weeks where I will find it more boring than others, but in general, it's something that gets me thinking, because you're pretty much just solving a puzzle. That's the best way I can describe it, honestly. AR for me is a new puzzle I can tackle every day, usually taking me 10 to 15 minutes of my time, or more than 30 if the map is super hard. So, if you like puzzles and have good AI knowledge, which by the way, I believe is the single most important skill to have for it, you probably like AR. And if you don't like it, well, I completely understand why. Units like Legendary Sigurd are just not fun to face, and if you're not having fun playing, then what's the point? I think I've gushed enough about AR, but before I move on to the next topic, I need to mention that I still believe it needs some sort of shakeup so it doesn't become too boring. I know new mythics or even new units coming out like Ascendant Fjorm are pretty much the meta shakeups that keep the mode going, but I'm thinking more in the way of, I don't know, new maps or something. It's been 3 years, I guess, come on. Power creep is a term constantly thrown around when you're talking about pretty much any mobile game. Obviously, FaZe suffers from it, as do many others. But I fully believe power creep is a necessary evil for these titles, and stops them from getting stale. As an example, I played the Japanese version of Fate Grand Order, another gacha game, for 3 years, and back then the game was known for having no power creep. As a result of that, it got to the point where it was just boring to see the same skills and effects on everyone. A lot of the units kind of felt very samey. Obviously, FGO could get away with this by virtue of its brand, but some games are not so lucky. Gradual power creep is fine, exciting even. Some games do it right and are surprisingly doing better than ever, one example being Dragon Ball Dokkan Battle. Obviously, it's not the main reason why it's doing better, but I can tell you no one would care for new characters if they were doing the same thing as releases from 3 years ago, just with a different coat of paint. For the most part, Faye has kept its power creep in check with small bumps here and there, but as many have already mentioned, 2021 has ramped up the power creep just a little bit too much. Not always and not every banner, but it definitely happened. Earlier this year, I sat down and thought about the biggest mistakes IS has made. I managed to come up with 5 main ones that have pushed the game in a less desirable direction. In my opinion, these are, in order of release, Brave Hector's Refine, 7 slot interaction on defense, save skills, Legendary Sigurd, and Fallen Edelgard. To a lesser degree, Ninja Lin can make the list too, and even though she heavily impacted the AR meta, especially after being given away for free to everyone, I feel like these 5 are still a bigger mistake from a power creep and game balance standpoint. So let's tackle them one by one. So first we have Brave Hector, who was given, for no reason, 6 effects on his weapon, back during a time where units were barely even getting 3. You can see here in the picture I've highlighted the different ones. Obviously this weapon is way too overloaded with good effects, and I feel like removing the effective against armored neutralization would have made him a more balanced unit, with a great weapon still. But instead what we got was an armor unit that doesn't need to worry about armor slayers, and single-handedly shaped the meta to a point where everyone started running Windsweep or some sort of dazzling staff. The best part about this, his weapon is so incredibly broken, it's not even enough to stop him most of the time. The next big mistake in my opinion has to do with how the 7 slot interacts on defense, something that we would only come to know with the release of Ceros at the end of January. After IS acknowledged that yes, that's how it was supposed to work, the floodgates were open for turn 1 engage teams with Duo Sigurd. I don't really consider his existence a mistake on IS's part, although a range 3 move dancer is obviously pretty good. The 7 slot mechanic and turn 1 engage teams, when coupled with odd recovery, which at the time was, in my opinion, one of the best skills in the game, made fighting those teams very oppressive and unfun. So much so that IS eventually released a safety fence to help people deal with it better. The next mistake, and definitely my most hated one, save skills. Introduced with the Valentine's banner, these are the skills I feel go against the spirit of what Fire Emblem is, a tactical RPG, the most. No other skill in the game promotes bad play and a feeling of not caring like these skills do. When careful positioning of units used to be a thing, and you were rewarded for it, IS blew that concept out of the water in favor of helping the casual players. I don't even know, but it's clear some flames were getting picked off, and so IS decided to help them. To this day, the most unskilled playstyle in the game, and if I had to pick the biggest mistake from IS, it would probably be this one. But I am pretty biased against it since I value smart play, so yeah. Coming out almost 3 months after the Valentine's banner, Legendary Sigurd is here to introduce specials that give passive effects just by being there, in this case, 1 extra movement. Yeah, just a cav moving 4 spaces every turn casually. Not just that, if he procs his special, he'll give everyone +6 attack and +1 movement as well. But surely such a stacked special has to have a big cooldown, right? What's that you say? It, it's a 2 cooldown special, and he has a slaying weapon? Well, okay. Legendary Sigurd is the only unit in the game that can give his entire team +1 movement if he hits someone with his special. He's the only legendary people actively use off-season in Ether raids. I mean, I know there's others like Grom, but I feel like Sigurd is used way more than him in his off seasons. Do I need to say anything else? I mean, I like Sigurd, but please. And finally, a week after Sigurd, because IS wanted to be in a hot streak of crappy game design, they released Fallen Edelgard with a whopping 5 effects in her weapon, including Gale Force. Yes, Gale Force. Surprisingly less than Brave Hector with his Refine. However, if you had the effects on her personal beast skill, you have a unit with 8 effects out of the box, a lot of them extremely strong, including self healing and special fighter. Again, I've highlighted every different effect. And even though I consider saves the biggest mistake skill wise, I consider Fallen Edelgard the biggest mistake unit wise. A unit that's so problematic that IS had to release multiple units just to counter her, including Legendary Byleth, and even he is not enough sometimes. A unit that genuinely can make me fail beginner arena when I just want to do my arena dailies. Yes, beginner arena where the enemies don't even have leveled units and skills. I'm sure this will not be the end of IS's terrible decisions, but to attribute most of Faye's downfall to power creep is, in my opinion, wrong. In fact, I believe without power creep, the game would have been in a much worse state. But while power creep by itself is not a problem, the way it was handled in 2021 was a bit too much, and I honestly don't see how anyone could defend it. Strong units have always existed in this game's lifespan, Surtur and Winter Altina to give some examples, but they never had the lasting impact we're seeing from these new busted toys. Maybe IS feels the need to stuff units with as many effects as possible to make it sell better, which is fine when done in moderation or when the unit doesn't get 8 super strong effects. They have shown they can still come up with interesting units and kits, Yuri being a recent example, so I really want to believe not everything is lost. If next year Power Creep goes even beyond the scope of Fallen Edelgard's 8 effects, then you can say I was wrong. Yeah, surely they'll slow down next year, right? Oh god. So, apart from power creep, where has all the doom and gloom come from? Well, the gameplay loop of the game has pretty much been the same for some years now. This is obviously extremely normal if you're used to playing gacha games, but it's hard not to feel bored after a while. IS has tried to keep things fresh by introducing new game modes that are interesting for one day and then become more of the same task you have to do when they're live. No, seriously, they have tried pretty much everything from a rhythm game to auto chess, even expedition dispatch and AFK farming that a lot of mobile games nowadays have. And come on, we all know Frontline Phalanx is the best mode in the game. The idea that a new game mode could revitalize Fae is thrown around a lot. I, however, am not very optimistic it would change anything, unless they truly impress and go all out. They've been introducing new ones every couple of months, and very few stick the landing. What's most likely to happen is that we'll get something that will be forgotten in a week because IS has not released anything good in 3 years. Obviously, I would like to be proven wrong, I just prefer not getting my hopes up. It's easy to forget all the positive things IS has done for the game, such as summoning changes, the addition of Grail units, divine code paths, combat manuals, and other quality of life changes. I won't talk about summoning in this video as it's a pretty controversial topic, but I just want to mention that it's definitely better now than it's ever been. And if IS added a spark system to every banner, not just new heroes banners, most of the complaints would be gone, but it is what it is. Before I end the video though, I want to talk about what to me is still exciting about Fire Emblem Heroes. In my opinion, the best and most exciting time of the month, weapon refines. Legendary remixes have really turned these around. Not that they weren't exciting before, but legendaries being added in and having not only their weapon, but also their personal skill change is super exciting and I think really healthy for the game. These refines can really turn someone from zero to hero. I mean, just look at Legendary Lyn. bit of a mixed bag here. The quality of free heroes in 2021 has been overall pretty disappointing. There are some exceptions, such as Young Inez, but in general, it was a pretty mid year for Tempest Trials and Grand Hero Battle units. Not only that, but the fodder is, a lot of the time, uh, pathetic. Still, even though not as good as previous years, it's still one of the aspects that keeps me and a lot of people excited for new banners. Now, please stop giving us red tomes and green axes. Limited hero battles were a pretty nice idea from IS's part, and one of the modes, if you can even call it that, that I personally really enjoy. It's a one and done thing, but the restrictions make it really fun and sometimes really challenging. I already said most of what I wanted to say about AR earlier in the video. It's a mode that has allowed me to use my favorite units such as Erica and Lynn in it with great success. I even have videos on this channel of me using OG Erica against real teams. She doesn't perform the best in current AR, but that's fine, and I'm thankful for the 2 years I did use her. Unfortunately, if something isn't done quick to shake up the meta, we'll be stuck with save balls, Catria balls, legendary Sigurds, and Knots for a while. I'll be honest and say I don't have much confidence this can be fixed, but I also don't think the mode is completely unfixable like Arena. Yeah, this is gonna age super well, I bet. Is Fire Emblem Heroes truly dying? It's normal to think that after seeing past banner performances, but the truth is, the game is still making a lot of money and has a healthy player base. Like every game, interest dwindles over the years, so obviously the earnings will be lower and keep going down, but to claim FEH is on its last legs is absurd. And even though IS has almost exhausted all of the popular choices from the mainline titles, they can always fall back to their original characters like they've been doing for the past banners. Because of this, I think the game will still be around for a couple of years. Yeah, watch me be wrong about that too. Finally, if I can give one advice to players, and this is probably really obvious to a lot of people, you need to have goals in this game. Setting goals for yourself, as long as they're realistic, is something I found helps so much, not just in FEH, but pretty much every gacha game, to combat boredom, burnout, or just to have a reason to keep going, to keep playing. It could be something simple like getting a single arena crown, fully merging or fully dragonflowering a unit you like, merges for a defense team, merges for an offense team, even something silly like getting every version of Camilla or getting one copy of every unit from a single game like, I don't know, genealogy. Me personally, I have thankfully completed the three main goals I had, fully merging a copy of Erika, Lynn, and Rinka. But I still have minor goals I'm working towards, like getting more merges for my Astro Mythics. And after I do, I'm sure I'll come up with something else. Constantly having something to work towards has helped me find fun and enjoyment in this game, even after almost 5 years. At the time of recording this video, Book 5 is almost finished, and we don't know what we're getting for Book 6, if it even happens. It's possible that all I've said in this video could become pretty outdated in the span of 1 month, but I guess we'll find out in the next FEH channel. Remember though, don't get your hopes up. Wow, yeah, I guess it's finally over. I've never recorded anything like this or talked for this long, but I just really wanted to share my thoughts on Fire Emblem Heroes. I'll still keep playing the game until it shuts down, however many years that takes. If you've been thinking about quitting lately, just remember it's fine to take breaks or play more casually. FOMO is a big factor for these games, and I'll be honest, it still gets me sometimes. With that being said, thank you for watching this video. If even one person watches this entire thing, as disjointed and pointless as it is, I'm already super grateful. You're the best. Let me know what you think about the state of the game in the comments below. I'd love to discuss it with people. I hope everyone has a great day and remember to stay safe out there. And I'll see you all in the next video.